Yeah, this is great, man. I could do this for hours.
My mother would buy cucumber pickles. They were fished out of a barrel with what they called a dipper. She'd buy so much sugar and so much flour, and that came out of the barrel and was shoved
Yeah.
in a paper
What
bag.
is it with all these barrels? A paper bag? Paper bag. Wow, a paper bag, guys.
And the cheese, he always gave me a little tiny piece of cheese to taste.
It's lovely.
Everybody could taste the cheese. And whatever he had one boy in the shop to help him, came out of these barrels and things.
Mm.
And he was a nice old Dutchman, and he built himself up such a good business that now the Vanderlick family, whom I think married with one of the oldest Castilian families here,
Mm.
are the, well, people. So anyhow, that was that. And further along, there was a little shop which was run by a man called Mesmer. That is where we bought our shoes. I wore little shoes with what they call spring heels. But my Sunday shoes were soft kid buttoned high. On each top of each shoe was a large black silk tassel. Oh, I tell you, I was something to behold in those days.
It's I also apart from the yeah again crystal clear pronunciation, like it's very nice. But another thing is note how much the attention to details. This is a generation that clearly, and you can see that linguistically in the way they express themselves. This is a generation that marveled at the smallest things, and she was happy about it. Like, look at this little detail that I have. I have a ribbon here, and my shoes. I had Sunday shoes, and they were special. And yeah, it really is a stark contrast with I can't have the latest iPhone, so I'm depressed. There is something. I think technology is great. I use it. My job is technology. Thanks to technology, but on the other hand, I think we lost the plot when it comes to being happy with small things. And this is, I can feel it. I don't know if you know what I'm saying, but I can feel it in the language she's using and the way she's describing things.
Well, the first fire station in Los Angeles was in Main Street between 1st and 2nd Street. And it was a tremendous excitement when there was a fire. There were very few of them because
Interesting way of using tremendous as an amplifier for, yeah.
there were very few houses and very few shops to burn down. Well, when the fire alarm sounded, the great big engine would dash out, always with magnificent white horses, and the hook and ladder, and all the inhabitants would run after it to see where the fire was. They jangled bells and whistled whistles, but no sirens, thank goodness, in those days.
Ah, thanks
And
goodness.
then the
No
next
sirens.
well-known thing was the brewery that was in 3rd Street between Main and Spring, and it was owned by a man, great big German, called Schwartz. And my great excitement was to walk up 3rd Street with my father, Mr. Schwartz, with leather or I suppose rubber boots up to his hips, would be sloshing down the suds and the water from the inside of the place across the sidewalk and into the gutter to go down the main drain. And he always addressed my father as Mr. Mayor.
Very precise as well, if you noticed. Like, she is not missing words. I don't know if she's reading this. Doesn't sound like it, though. It sounds like she's actually speaking. And I find it interesting how she's very precise in the vocabulary she uses. Like, this is the correct word for this, and this is what it is that is, and the gutters and the rail and the main road intersected with, like, it's very, as I say, precise.
Morning, Mr. Mayor. And once or twice I was taken into the brewery to see how everything worked, and it was so cool and lovely, and I just loved the smell.
Did she say cool? Do you think she means the temperature? Because I mean, she's again from the 1800s, but now she's recording, I guess, in the early 1900s. But I don't know if they were using the word cool in the way we use it. Do you think she literally meant temperature? Let me know in the comments.
Smell of the hops. And we used to often walk up there because later on, when we got a little bit older, we had to walk up 3rd Street to get on a cable car to take us to school.
Mm.
Now then, you want to know how I was dressed as a little girl?
Please.
I wore some kind of a little bodice, I can't remember what it was, which had buttons all.
Interesting. She said what, but with the addition of the aspiration, what. So what it was. I guess this was already a characteristic in some areas of American English, some states.
Around it. And on those buttons hung my drawers. And on top of that, I wore a knitted petticoat, hand knitted by my dear grandmother, who practically brought us up.
Mm.
A beautiful, beautiful old lady she was. Well, she wasn't old for now. She died at 70, and everybody thought that was tremendous. Well, anyhow, she used to knit.
Tremendous, but she's using it in a negative way. Whereas today, if we say that's tremendous, we mostly mean it in a positive way. A bit like the difference between terrible, negative, and terrific, positive. Both have the same stem and the same origin, but they're used in opposite ways. She's using tremendous in, and I have never heard tremendous in a negative way. Let me know if you did.
These little petticoats for me, and they were either pink and white, mostly blue and white, and those tied around my waist on top of my drawers. Then on top of that, I wore a white petticoat which hung onto some kind of a bodice, and that always was trimmed with white embroidery, which my grandmother spent hours and years embroidering for me.
I believe that.
That was on those. Then on top of that, I wore some kind of a little dress. I must have been a sight. I must have looked like a Christmas tree. And I think I must have been very uncomfortable, but I didn't know it.
Right.
That was the way we dressed in those days. Then my hair, which was very long and very thick, was tied with a ribbon on. No, when I went to school, when I was about 6 years old and went to school, that was in a nice thick plait with a ribbon on the end.
Oh, she used plait. So now in American English, braid is the word mostly used, and plait is now a word used in the UK instead. But maybe that shift hadn't happened yet, and so she still used plait.
But on Sundays, that was wild, just hanging all over the place, and that was that. And I can remember my mother on one of her trips to New York, she was very delicate, bringing back a little beaver bonnet and a little coat trimmed with beaver. Can you imagine, in Southern California? I must have died of heat, but nobody seemed to know it. Well, that's that. So, let me think, what else? Well, Pembroke and I went to a kindergarten, and we were not more, Pembroke was not more than 5 or 6, and I was a year older. And we had to go on a little one-horse car, which started at the plaza and ran down Main Street with a bell on the horse, tinkle, 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 and we knew all the drivers until we got to our little kindergarten, which was near 7th Street in Maine. We were taught by a little old maid who couldn't exist any place in the world now except between the covers of a Dickens novel.
Wow, even the mention, yeah. Anyways, this was fascinating trip, and yeah, we'll continue to make more if you guys are interested in these. Maybe we can find some recordings of old school English, like when, for instance, the Queen was young, or where the King, her father, made Christmas declarations to the empire, in fact, back. So those still exist. If you're interested, let me know. Thank you very much, and I will see you tomorrow for my next daily upload. Thank you for joining Metatron's Academy. Bye.